All right, welcome everyone to the Google Workspace for Education. This is our first of two webinars for the Master of Teaching program. My name is Ryan Lottie. I work in Education Commons at OISE, which is like an IT department. And I'm here today to kind of go over some of the cool features surrounding Google Workspace, what's available out there to you as students and pre-service teachers. I know many of you have already probably dabbled in Google and that sort of stuff before. But today we're mostly going to look at what some of the features are, how to get access to them, and then we're going to spend a bit of time looking at how we can set up rubrics with assignments within our Google Classrooms. Yes, so for the agenda today, the first thing we're going to talk about is what is the Google Workspace for Education project, how you can get access to it if you haven't already, what some of the features we have that are available and which ones aren't available. And again, depending on the school boards you do your practicums in, you may have different features. We're going to explore some of the basic tools today, and I'm going to show you how you can set up a classroom. We'll create an assignment and attach your rubrics to that assignment. So again, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A at the bottom, and we will answer them as we go. So the Google Workspace for Education project is for you, the MT students, as well as the staff and faculty. And basically, we wanted to have an ecosystem where pre-service teachers could create resources and content and have a place to store them safely, because a lot of times when we go to a school board, and whether we're hired as an occasional teacher or doing pre-service teaching, the moment we leave that school board, we typically lose access to all those systems. So this will be a nice centralized kind of area where you can save content and resources you've created. As I know, creating resources for teaching is super important. I'm a retired teacher myself, so I know about all the sleepless nights of creating rubrics and assignments and PowerPoint slides and that sort of stuff. So hopefully using the Google Workspace provided by Education Commons and OISE, it'll be a great spot where you can kind of keep your stuff. And then if you get hired to a school board, maybe you can bring some of your created resources with you, or you can share them with some of your colleagues. So basically, our Google Workspace instance is the free version, and it basically uses the email address at oise.utoronto.ca. So if you are a student in the MT program, you likely have an at mail.u.toronto.ca. And so you can see it's just slightly different for using Google Workspace. This technology aligns with a lot of school boards too. Google Workspace is actually in I'd say the majority of school boards across Ontario. So I think this is going to be very familiar for a lot of you if you've been in the classrooms. So how to get access to Google Workspace. I know some of you have already been into our Google Workspace, but if you've never logged in before, you're just going to head over to gmail.com and you're going to sign in with your University of Toronto email address, but you're going to change the domain from mail to OISE. So you're going to make that switch and hit enter. It's not going to prompt you for a password. It's actually going to move you over to the SSO. So it's going to ask you to put in your UTOR ID and log in, which is a really, really nice feature. If you try this and you don't have any success, you can absolutely submit a ticket to Education Commons and we can look into it. We had to manually add all the users, and it's possible that some users have not been added correctly. So you can give that a try. And once you log in, it should look like you're just inside Gmail, which is kind of like the landing page for Google Workspace for Education. In the fundamentals edition that we have, there's a lot of different tools you can use. I'm sure you're familiar with Gmail. It's the world's most popular email hosting service, as well as Calendar, Meet, Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides, which kind of looks like Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, as well as things like forms and classroom and assignments. And those get more into the teaching and learning side of Google Workspace for Education. We also have the ability to create class websites, create drives with shared content, Jamboards, and the list goes on. But today we're mostly going to take a look at Google Classroom and how some of these tools interact with it. So some of the missing features you're going to notice off the top, if you have been at a school board that has a higher level than we do, is you might not be able to use Q&A during your Google Meet. So if you're running a live class lesson or lecture, you can't do polls, at least not integrated. You also only have 5 originality reports with your account. Again, For our instance, with you creating your own classrooms, you're likely not going to have real students in the classes you create through the OISE version. So the originality reports are mostly meant for you to test and play around with. But obviously, if you're at TDSB or TCDSB, you may have more access to originality reports. And I really want to emphasize that what you create in the OISE version of Google Workspace, you can't invite students in from the Toronto District School Board into your classes. All of the real teaching and learning you're going to be doing will be done on the school board's instance of Google Workspace. We also don't have access to some of the classroom add-ons and live streams as well. But again, unless you're broadcasting to over 10,000 people, that's not too big of an issue. And yeah, so right now we're going to hop in and we're going to explore some of the tools. I'm going to do a screen share with my Google Workspace, and I'm going to show you how we can set up a classroom and get some, play around with it a little bit. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up a Google Classroom. We're going to create an assignment, and then I'm going to show you how you can easily create rubrics, which is really good if you have some colleagues, maybe in this session or just in the program with you, that you want to share rubrics with. My mantra when I was a teacher was work smarter, not harder. So I understand the importance of resource sharing as a teacher. I'm sure we all have these external hard drives where we save all the information and resources. So that's what a good thing you can do with Google Workspace. And then tomorrow, we're going to look a little bit more into things like Google Forms, Jamboard, slides, and a little bit more of the somewhat complicated things you can do in Google Workspace. So today is definitely a bit of an introduction to the more beginner stuff. And if you have any questions, again, feel free to pose them in the chat. I don't think I'll be able to really see them right now, but maybe at the end, Kim can just let me know.
Ryan?
So, yeah.
Just one question's popped up so far. It was about how long they'll have access. Will they still have access to OISE's Google after graduating?
So as far as we know, the access is going to continue on. So I don't believe we have a cap number on our users. We are keeping track of which users are in which year. So right now, if you're in year 1 or year 2, we've put you into your own little pocket. And this is more from like an IT standpoint. And so that way, 5 years from now, maybe we go, oh no, we're at the, Google's going to make us remove users or we're running out of space or whatever. If that ever did come to be the case, we would let all users know, hey guys, you graduated 10 years ago, you got to move your stuff away. But if that is the case, there's a very easy way for you to transfer your content to your personal Gmail, which maybe I'll show tomorrow if you're curious on that. But as far as I know, I can't do any guarantees. I don't think we're going to run into that issue. So my answer is probably about as clear as mud, but I don't think it's going to be an issue. So I hope that works. Is there any other questions I should answer right now, Kim, or?
Nope, that was the only one. I got the other one in the chat. Okay.
So I'm going to share my my Google Workspace. So here we go. I'm just inside Google Chrome. So if you are using a PC or a Mac, I highly recommend using Google Chrome as your browser, especially when you're using Google Workspace. It's just obviously the best supported because it's a Google product. And you'll look at this and you'll go, oh, Ryan, this isn't Google Workspace. This is just Gmail. And surprise, surprise, Gmail is kind of the backbone or at least the landing page for Google Workspace. So if you have a Gmail account, this may look familiar. It's just my Gmail inbox. And you can go in here and you can compose messages. Let's see if I can find Kim in here. And you can find any students who are registered in the program who have been set up. We've opened up the directory so you can message any other students in the program with your OISE email account. You won't get access to anyone's student accounts from U of T or anyone's personal accounts, but you will be able to message each other with your OISE accounts, which is great, especially if you want to do things like use the chat feature or create a space like maybe you want to run a sample math space where you can talk with your colleagues or peers about math lessons you're running and that sort of stuff. So that's one feature we have enabled. But again, you're not going to get access to anyone's actual student emails. And so now that we're at Gmail here, in the top right corner, we have this app launcher button, or I call it the waffle button. And this will give you a drop down of all of the tools that are currently available for Google Workspace for Education. And if you do have a personal Gmail account, all if not most of these tools are also available there as well too. And some of the more prominent ones are near the top. So things like Google Drive, Docs, Sheets, Slides, Calendar, and then down a little bit, we even have our Classroom as well. So, definitely click on some of these apps and try them out. Some of them are probably very familiar. Some of them maybe not so much, but yeah, I highly recommend checking these out. And so I guess maybe the first thing I'll share is our Google Drive. And again, I know I'm going at a bit of a snail's pace here with Google Drive and Gmail, but Google Drive is really important to kind of wrap your head around, because it's basically unlimited or technically unlimited cloud storage. So if you create any resources within Google, so if you create a Google Doc, let's say you type up a 10,000 page essay, it's actually not going to take up any space in your Google Drive, which is really cool. If you start uploading things like PDFs, maybe songs, movies, then that will start eating away at the total storage, which is organizational wide. And I forget how many dozens, if not hundreds of terabytes we have for an organization. But just keep that in mind. And you can see, even with all these folders and files I have in my Google Drive, I've only used 1.3 megabytes, probably because I have a PDF and a couple of PDFs in here. So that's the really nice feature with Google Drive that not a lot of people realize. And you can also very easily see if you've shared files and shared content with other people. So like I said, sharing is super important when you're a teacher, especially when you're just starting out. So creating folders, let's call it, grade 10 math, algebra unit. If you can create your own unit and share that with, one of your friends or colleagues, and they can share a unit back with you, it's really useful in, not duplicating work and stuff like that. So this is Google Drive. And if you create any files while you're using Google Workspace within your Google Classroom or your Google site, they will live here in Google Drive. So you're probably like, oh, I created an assignment, but I can't find it on my computer or on my desktop anywhere. It's automatically going to be saved to your Google Drive. The next three here, and again, I think I'll go into slides a little bit more in detail tomorrow, but these three, as mentioned, are just like Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. Google Docs is a really great tool as well, and that's likely how you can have your students submit assignments, things like essays or anything you need them to write up. But let's actually pivot a little bit here, and let's go right down to Google Classroom. And when you go to Google Classroom, if it's your first time going to Google Classroom, it will likely ask you if you are a teacher or a student. Please click on teacher, and that way it's going to give you all of the controls that's good that teachers get, aka you get to create classrooms, duplicate classrooms. If you choose student, you'll be limited just to signing into other people's classes, which doesn't really give you a lot of the functionality. And so here I've created a bunch of just kind of shell courses. There's not much in these, but if it's your first time here, this plus button in the top right-hand corner will actually let you create or join a class. And so in order to join a class, you need to be given a class code. And if you've worked at TDSB in some of these schools and your course does have class codes, that's a great way where you can share a code with a student and they can join your class, or you can share codes with your colleagues who are maybe in this webinar right now and have them test out some of your assignments and assessments and things you're creating to see how it looks and how it works. So that's how you actually join a class. But for today, let's look at creating a class. So when I click create a class, you can give it a name, and maybe for today, we'll call it, I don't know, science 11 or something like that. And again, there's a lot of information here, but I like to just put most of the information I need to know at the very top. Biology, section, I don't know, 101, subject, science, I guess, I don't know. And then room, probably not really applicable either. You can leave some of these blank, I think, and you're still going to be able to create the class. And it does take usually a second for the class to be created. But the cool thing is that once your class is created, then you can really start building it out, testing things, and you can even start inviting other folks with OISE.utron.ca email accounts into your class to test things. And so this is my homepage here. It does have a little banner that I can customize. You can even upload photos. So maybe you have a cool science photo you want to upload, or you can change it every unit to whatever you're working on. And there's a class code right here as well. So if you did want anyone to join your class, they'd have to enter that class code. And you can easily copy an invitation link and send that over to whoever you want to come to your class. The landing page in Google Classroom is called Stream. And this is kind of like, what are the important things happening in the course? What do I need to know? So again, there's nothing in here because it's a brand new course, but this may be a spot where teachers post updates. Maybe they see assignments coming down the pipe. Maybe the teacher just wants to share a cool YouTube video. It's a really cool space where you can pose questions to your class and get a little bit of quick feedback. The one thing that's kind of a common theme I've noticed is people don't, it's kind of a bit of a divided opinion if Google Workspace and Google Classroom is a learning management system. It's limited in some ways that it is a little bit trickier to post content. So if you can think of like a class website that maybe you were on 10 years ago, if your teacher had a math class website where you could download quizzes and download content, there's not really a good place within Google Classroom to do that. And that's why you can always pair your Google Classroom with Google Sites. So you can create your own little standalone site. You can connect it to your Google Classroom, and that's where you could put all of your content, especially if you're teaching some of that higher level grade 11, grade 12 stuff where there's a ton of lectures and PowerPoint slides. Google Sites is a really good option for that as well. So within this science course here, I think if I go to this, I think if I go to the stream settings, this is going to give me all the settings for what appears in the class stream. And if I scroll down a little bit, there's a couple things that you might want to check out. So stream, students can post and comment, or students can only comment. Some teachers like to choose this option, so that way the homepage of the course stays really neat. It's really focused on what's being talked about, but students can always comment on something. So if the teacher posts a review for, let's say, the science midterm coming up, students can comment and ask questions all they want, but they can't just put a big blurb out there, the day after going, that was such a hard midterm. So it keeps the homepage a little bit more cleaned up. So it's really up to you, but that's just one feature that a lot of people try to, I see a lot of people switching to that as well. You can have deleted items to appear. You probably don't want that as well. And you can also change on, you can also customize your mark calculations here as well too, but we won't worry about that today. And again, once you make any changes to your course stream, just click save. And now if you do have students in here, they won't be able to comment. However, because I'm the teacher, I can comment. And you can share things from your Google Drive. You can upload things like PDFs, maybe a picture from your trip on the weekend, website links, YouTube videos, and that sort of stuff. So, and you can also choose if you're teaching more than one section, who it's going to go to and for which class it's going to go to. And so if you are teaching multiple courses and they're all different, like you can see here, an outer space class, a drama class, you could just say, have a great, winter break, everyone. And you could put a little nice message and you can actually send that to all of the courses you're teaching. So that's one nice feature about Stream as well. I'm going to skip over classwork just for a second, just to go to the People tab here. Discard those changes. And here's where you can see anyone who's been added to your course. So Google Workspace allows you to add up to 20 teachers, I believe, to your classrooms. And I forget, it's a very high number for students. I think it may even be 300 or in the thousands. I can't remember. So the cool thing is if you did want to work on a class or a Google Classroom with some of your colleagues, you can easily add them to your class as teachers. And if you want to see what it looks like from a student view, the best way to do it is to add other folks as students so they can see and test some of that content out. And same sort of thing, you can actually email people using their OISE accounts, or you can even send a classroom invitation link for them to join directly. And I mean, I can even copy this one right here. Maybe I'll post this in the chat. If anyone isn't, you feel free to I don't know, join as a student, and we'll see if that works. But in the meantime, let's go over to classwork. And so where Stream kind of hosts all of that, that important information, it is connected to what's happening in the class for classwork. The actual classwork page is where students are going to go to see, okay, what am I required to do in this class? Do I have assignments? Do I have quizzes? Do I have, what kind of ways am I going to be assessed? And so this is pretty empty right now, but you can easily click the plus button and you can start adding different types of classwork that you want students to complete. I like using topics first. So if I'm teaching biology, I might do a unit on cellular biology and add that in there. And it just kind of gives you a nice little heading where you can kind of organize, different topics and stuff. We can call this maybe like plant cells or something. And that way you can kind of keep your content organized. So it's very specific, and you can even change how they're ordered and that sort of stuff. You do have your topics listed on the side as well. And now you can start adding content to each of your topics. So the first way would be to add materials. This is adding just content for your students. We can call this, actually, let me just double check which one I was on, cellular biology. So if I go to material, I'm going to call it cellular biology week 1. And here you can type all the content you want. You can upload files, stuff from your Google Drive. Maybe you have some presentations saved. Maybe you have YouTube videos you've done of video lectures. You can add those all in here. And again, you can choose which students are going to see it. And I'm just going to make sure this goes into cellular biology, and I'm going to click post. And just like that, I've added some content. Obviously, I didn't put anything in it, but yeah. And so if I add, let's say, a question, I might say, what is your favorite cell? Which one? And again, you can choose the type of question it's going to be, whether it's short answer, multiple choice. Hey, everyone, just wondering, what's your favorite cell? You can assign a due date to it quite easily. The time will default to 11:59, which is pretty handy. And same thing, just make sure you put it with the right topic. And students can edit their answers, or students can reply to each other. So, it really depends on your, how you're teaching and your teaching style. You can also leave it as unmarked as well, which is pretty handy too. So when I click on there, I can actually click ask. So it'll pose the question directly into my course, or I can delay it by scheduling it to post. Maybe you don't want to work on your course on Wednesday nights because you're in a softball league. Well, you can have stuff scheduled to load into your course for your students on those nights or over weekends and things like that too, which is pretty handy. So if I ask this question here, you'll see it's appeared right on the top there. It's due May 15th. And if I go back to my stream, you can see some of the things I've posted are actually appearing right on the stream, which is pretty cool too. And it brings students directly to it. Oh, we can see Kim's in here as well. And you can see when people are actually completing those questions or that type of content. Now, the next thing I want to share is how to create an assignment. So this is probably a pretty common way you're going to assess students, especially if you're teaching online. So if I go ahead and click assignment here, I might call this plant cell drawing. Maybe they have to draw a plant cell or something like that. And so here's where you're going to put all of your instructions in. And in the last two examples with the content and with the question, I didn't put a lot of instructions, but if you're doing a big assignment, here's where you want to put all of that content in. And you can absolutely link to other files you have. Maybe you have an exemplar, and I'll just actually see if I can browse. I think I was going to do an English demo earlier, but I have a sample essay. So we'll pretend this is part of science. You can upload PDFs. So if you have some exemplars from past semesters, or maybe it's a final exam review, you can share that as well. And you can choose what level of access students have. Students can view the file, students can edit the file, or make a copy for each student. It's really up to you. But the more content you include, the better. Maybe you'll put a a link here as well, www.cbc.ca/cells. Maybe they have a great, I don't think that's going to be anything, but maybe they have a great website on cells, or maybe it's a YouTube video as well. So the more content you can give to your students to support their understanding of what's being asked of them, probably the better, assuming you don't want to confuse them with too much stuff, but yeah. And so here, again, you can choose if it's going to be unmarked or graded, and you can choose how many points it's going to be out of. Once you start adding more and more assignments and really flesh out your units, then I would recommend trying to weight them and make sure that everything adds up correctly. But while you're just adding them in right now, I just set everything usually to 10 or 100 points, and then I adjust that after the fact. Again, I'm just going to add a quick due date in here for this assignment as well. And here, so I go down to cellular, and here's where I do have an originality checker. So we only have 5 originality checkers, I think, per license. So if you're using the OISE version, I would recommend just not using this unless you just want to kind of see what it looks like. And then any student who submits an assignment, you'll get an originality report on if it's been plagiarized or not. So that's just a cool feature. Other school boards may have unlimited, but we do not. And the next thing I want to share was adding a rubric. So Google Classroom actually has a rubric feature built right in where you can just create a rubric. You can choose to use scoring, graded or ungraded, basically. I like using graded. It's pretty handy. And you can add different criteria, a description of it, as well as different leveled scores they can get. So maybe you might call this reading comprehension. And you might say like students understand or show understanding or whatever. And there you go. And so now if you're using like success criteria, you can add as many different levels as you want. Usually you grade them like kind of sequentially 2, 3, 4. And you can call this, I don't know, level. You can even call it level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. And you can also put a description in. So this is like where you see your traditional rubrics. Student shows limited understanding of the text that was provided, or student shows exceptional understanding of what was provided. And these rubrics are really helpful, especially if you're doing larger assignments like marking essays and things like that, which is pretty cool. And you can add as many different levels of criteria as you want. So here's just my one grading. So right now my essays or my rubric is out of 4 marks. But once I add another one down here and kind of start fleshing these out, now I can make these be out of like 2, 4, 6, 8. Maybe whatever this criteria is worth twice as much. Maybe I'm really want to check their grammar or something like that. And so now my rubric is out of 12. So pretty cool. But as you can see, it takes a little bit of time to set up. And the nice thing about Google Classroom is that you can actually save rubrics and you can reuse the rubrics as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and click save here. And just like that, you can see I have a rubric attached. Rubric 2 has 12 points just because that's one I just created, and it's good to go. And so if I do create a similar assignment in the future, or maybe in a new unit, but I want to use a similar type of rubric, I can actually pull up that rubric, no problem at all. And I'm just going to delete it off right now. So pretend there's no rubric on this. But one of my favorite features of creating assignments in Google Classroom is that I can add the rubric and I can actually import from Sheets. And so let's just go back. And you might say, well, Ryan, what is Sheets? So here we are back at the Gmail homepage. I'll click the app launcher here, and I have Sheets available. And Sheets works basically like Microsoft Excel. And so you can, use it to, do your taxes or whatever, but you can also use it to post rubrics. And so let's just take a look at one I did just a couple hours ago. This is what a rubric looks like when it's loaded into Sheets. So here I've done a reading comprehension rubric. I've put a couple different criteria. Again, none of this really makes sense, but it's in there regardless. I think I might have another one as well too. Let me see if I have a folder of rubrics here. Let's try this one. It's the same one. So anyways, I do have a couple of rubrics that are saved in my Google Drive. So now I can use them across different classes. If I go to a different school board, I can use them. I can even, share them with my peers. I can just click the share button here and I can go, maybe Kim's looking for a writing rubric. I can just type in Kim's email, probably somewhere in here. There we go. I can share it with Kim, no problem. And I could give her editor access to it, or even just to view it, to see what she thinks. And away you go. And now she has access to that rubric that she can use with her Google Classroom, which is pretty cool. So if I go back to my Google Classroom here, I can actually import from Sheets. And again, I'm going to go to my Google Drive, but any of the quick ones are just going to show up right here. And now, just like that, it pulls in all the content exactly how I want it. But the one thing is missing is that it's not using any scoring. So now I'm just going to go and turn that on. And again, you can adjust these however you want to kind of score students on their work, maybe 4 and then maybe 2, and go ahead and click save. And that's basically how you create an assignment. You add all the content that students need, and then you just make sure you have a rubric kind of clipped on there. And the more time you spend creating your rubric initially, probably the easier it's going to get later on down the road, and you're going to be glad you put the work in ahead of time. Let me just go back to the classroom here. Yeah, and then so once students do start, answering questions, anything that's graded, they can, the marks will start appearing here as well. You can change what different assignments are worth, that sort of stuff. You get a class average. But that's basically the ins and outs and the basics of using Google Classroom. If you ever want to see the other classes that you're teaching or other shells you've created or sandboxes you've created, just this little 3-line button here will pop out and you have all of the courses you have created. And even any courses that you've archived. So maybe there's courses you haven't used in a couple of years, so you've archived them. You can always go back and find those courses as well too. So super handy. You have your calendar feature as well too. So you can see exactly when certain things are due for certain classes. So if you're teaching multiple classes or just the one class, any assignments will appear there too, which is pretty handy. And so just like that, that's kind of my quick little rundown of Google Classroom. I don't know, Kim, are there any questions or anything else I need to cover?
Yeah, we had 2 questions that I said we would defer to you, Brian. So let's just start with Eugene's, which was, can you invite others outside of the OISE domain? So in other words, if you try to share the class code on the left-hand side of your screen there, can somebody with a regular Gmail account or say a school board Gmail account join the class?
Yeah, I believe we enabled that because of that exact issue. So yeah, I think I tried this before. And yeah, so you definitely can. So I know I'll get an email to my personal account. But by default, it doesn't let you do that. So if you're at TDSB, I would imagine they have that turned off. But in our instance, you absolutely can, which makes it a lot easier for testing and sharing content as well too. So yes.
Okay, and we had another question from Brian that was kind of related to this session, but maybe not directly, which was they were very interested to know how you appeared, sort of hovered over your slides in your presentation initially. Like yeah,
that is, maybe we can do I'll see if you can see my entire desktop here, but basically this is my Zoom window here. Hopefully everyone can see it. So if you're using a new version of Zoom, you can actually go to the screen share button. Oh, I wonder if you're gonna be able to see this. Let me see. Yeah, so I have this little window here where I can share, I have some windows open and stuff like that. But up at the top, there's actually an advanced button, and it's a beta feature, but you can actually use your slides as a virtual background. So if you have your slides downloaded, which I have mine ready to go just on my desktop here, it'll take a second to load me in, but that makes you appear. And so I do it because I think it looks kind of cool, and I appreciate the positive feedback there. You can also change like how big you are and where you are on the slides, which is kind of neat. I like using this because if you use Zoom, even if you have the free version of Zoom, you can run your lecture. So let's say this is my math lecture over here behind me. I can record it. And now I've got a really cool video that I can upload to my YouTube channel, which you do get access to YouTube with your new OISE Gmail account. You can create your own playlist of your own class lectures just like this. So I like it for that reason alone as well. So yeah, that's how you do it.
Thanks, Ryan. And then we had another question pop up. So Megan's wondering about how you can sort of flip between the student orientation in Google Workspace versus teacher orientation. So I had initially mentioned in the chat that you can add your own classes, like create your own classes. So you're the teacher, essentially. You can be added to somebody else's class as a teacher. But then if you use that invite code, you're essentially a student in the class. I don't know if you wanted to just quickly do a screen share and show those different ways of sort of entering a classroom, so to speak.
Sure. Let me see if I can. And actually, are you in my class right now, Kim?
Which one? The science?
Yeah, any of them.
Any of them. Yeah, hold on. Let me just get out of here. Go back to science. Okay, I'm in your class now.
Because yeah, so this is, everything that I've been showing today is definitely from the teacher view. That's why you get all these extra options and, you can customize everything. But Kim, I don't know, are you able to share your screen inside the?
Okay, so you can see my screen, Ryan?
Yep.
All right, so this is me. I'm in Ryan's biology class, and all I did is using the link in the chat that Ryan shared. I clicked that link, and then it's going to ask you which account you want to join the class with. So I chose my OISE account, and as soon as I did that, I now appear as part of Ryan's class. But when I'm in Ryan's class, I'm in his biology class. So Ryan's the teacher and I'm the student if I'm using the invite link that he put into the chat. But these are some of the other Google Classrooms that I've created myself as an instructor, for example, my sandbox class. And the way you create your own class as a teacher is just using that plus sign over there. So if you create a class, you by default are now the teacher of that class. And you can add other instructors to your class as well. So let's just say in my sandbox class, I want Ryan to be a co-teacher with me. I can just click that plus sign where the little sort of person icon is there. I click Ryan, invite, and now it's going to say he's invited. Once he accepts that invitation, then Ryan and I would both be co-teachers in this same Google space. If we want to now add students, I could add, let's just say, I just happened to see that Ken was here online with us. So I could add Ken as a student in my class. So
and I just joined as a teacher there, Kim. I just got the invite and I'm in there now.
So Ryan will be able to see all the teacher admin sort of features of the classroom. He'll be able to add assignments. He'll be able to post things to the stream. But Ken, who I've added as a student instead, even though Ken theoretically can create their own classrooms, as a teacher, in this case, Ken's been added as a student. And so Ken would see the student view of this Google Classroom. Hopefully that answers the question. Let me just check the chat. Oh, okay. So Megan is saying, I'm in student mode in my Google account. Is there a way to change that?
I might have to do a bit of research. And that's why I mentioned at the very start, I said, make sure you choose teacher. I might have to either do a bit of research to see if there is a way, because I don't think there is. And if not, I might have to reset your account, Megan. So I'll just make a note of that. So yeah, so please, the first time you ever do it, make sure you choose teacher so you get that access. All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming today. If you do have more questions, feel free to bring them to the session tomorrow. And for the folks that are logged in as students, I will try my best to fix that issue as well too. But yeah, hopefully you get out and enjoy the nice warm weather. And you have my email, so feel free to send me an email and I'm glad to help out.